SEO apocalypse is here. AI has come to take over the marketing world. Well, no, don't think so. In fact, I think ChatGPT is no threat to the roles of optimizers, copywriters, SEOs, and content marketers. Instead, it's a powerful tool that can help enhance our work.
As an SEO, as a copywriter, content marketer, whatever, I am able to have an input that I can very well already, or in the past, I could have already gotten in different ways with different SEO tools, marketing tools, etc. But through this chatbots, it's much more natural. You can also integrate this quite easily through extensions.
This Marketing Powerups episode, you learn first the importance of understanding the user intent of AI prompts for SEO. Second, how to effectively leverage AI to create high-quality content that ranks. Third, Aleyda's favorite ChatGPT prompts for SEO activities. And number 4, how being generous with her knowledge accelerated her career. Now, before I start, I've created a free Powerups cheat sheet that you can download, fill in, and apply Aleyda's 6 elements of better AI prompts for SEO. You can go to marketingpowerups.com right now to download it or find the link in the show notes and description. You ready? Let's go.
Marketing Powerups. Ready? Go! Here's your host, Rambly John.
Really excited to be talking about AI and SEO. You just mentioned a little bit before we hit record how things have changed so much in the last 5 months. I'm curious, you've shared great posts and Twitter threads and blog posts. I'm going to link them all in the show notes in the description as well. But I'm curious, you probably already have been forming opinions about this, or you're seeing it. You've been in SEO since 2007 and in marketing. Curious how you see AI impacting like SEO and marketing jobs. Like, do you think it will take over our jobs? Probably not. Or will it be more like helping us do our jobs easier, faster, or better? I mean, what's your take on how SEO AI will affect marketers?
Yes. So that definitely different scenarios and angles for about it. So on one hand, from an automation of the tasks that we tend to do, right? We can see that there are a lot of, let's say, tactical work that can be highly automated with a quality of the output that we were not used to. And actually, like, we can pretty much develop complete workflows many times. The problem here is, of course, the quality, the validation, etc., etc. But for example, now that ChatGPT is integrated with the web, with Bing as a browser too, and the browsing plugins, etc., we can do a lot of stuff like please check out the top rank pages for this query and let me know based on the title tags of these top 10 rank queries, suggest me one that is highly relevant, highly optimized based on SEO best practices, and provide me one that is unique. Provide me 5 versions that are unique.
Wow.
Provide me 10 versions that are unique. So me as a optimizer, as an SEO, as a copywriter, content marketer, whatever, I am able to have an input that I can very well already, or in the past, I could have already gotten in different ways with different SEO tools, marketing tools, etc. But through these chatbots, I believe that it's much more natural, and you can also integrate this quite easily through extensions. So, for example, the GPT for Work or Numerous.ai extensions for Google Sheets that integrate with the OpenAI API. So you can generate all of this in bulk, right? So it can highly facilitate your translation work, localization work, optimization work, and also reword this recommendation for an audience that is not technical in case of SEO recommendations, right? Things like that. So it can highly automate all the activities that you can also already automate from a keyword research standpoint, competition standpoint, but in a way that, let's say, can be feel a little bit more complete, easy, comprehensive, and validated, that you can easily validate too. So there's that on one hand. I think that the risk falls into asking the bot something very generic, and that depends on the context. So, provide me an SEO strategy to grow my website rankings in 2024. That for cruise lines guides in Europe, things like that, right? So please, I mean, if you even ask ChatGPT about what are the top top criteria or top factors, or how to do an SEO recommendation or SEO audit, it's going to be, at the end of the day, based on a lot of content out there that is not really 100% accurate. And it's going to be very, let's say, non-strategical, not taking context into account. And so there's that on one hand. And then on the other hand, a big part of our job as SEOs, also as marketers, is not only identify the issues and opportunities, identify a solution of the problem, but actually implement and execute on that.
Right.
Which in many, many, many scenarios is the much more difficult part, especially in SEO, where we had to align technical development work, content optimization actions, promotional actions. So there's a lot of alignment, project management, etc., going on. Monitoring, identification of opportunities also along the way, etc. So it's very strategical. It has to do a lot with soft skills too. So this part I see much more challenging that bots take over, right? So I will say that if you're a SEO or marketer who are focused on the strategical part of it, making things happen, and are not like a one-trick pony just generating title tags, you should be safe, right? You can leverage this tool also to accelerate the legwork that you otherwise need to do to be much more efficient too, right? To like rewrite or improve many times outreach URL builder, for example, outreach messages, things like that. Also to investigate the profile or the context of the websites or the authors that you are outreaching to, getting in touch with, this type of things. Or also to get support or validation of how to implement certain things within the code in case you don't have access to a web developer, right? As an SEO, to implement certain things in the HE access, or to generate regex, for example, when doing SEO reporting, for example, things like that. It can highly, highly help you in your day-to-day. But very tactical things like that, I wouldn't rely on this completely for much more strategical part. Then on the other hand, there is a completely different angle of it. Just the impact on search as a platform, right? Google as a platform to search and consume information and identify information that you want to buy or consume in general. And that is definitely shifting, right? I don't believe that from one day or another. It feels like very echo chamber, because between us, it's ChatGPT. But if you go out there and you do a survey in the streets of how many people still search with Google and how many people are searching with any chatbot, you will see that it's a very minimal share, right? But I believe that it's a new interface, a new paradigm that is much more natural to interact with. So there's definitely a trend. Now, Google has the big challenge here. And Bing has already started doing it. And actually, I think that in a particularly good, natural, with good user experience way, integrating their chatbot as a new tab. I think that separating well in which context it is much more advisable or natural to have a chatbot-like experience, especially when finding factual information and a lot of informational queries. But then in which other aspect, it doesn't actually solve your problem, but also adds an additional layer of complexity. And I think that this is what Google is trying to sort out still, right? They have the technology. The technology hasn't learned as much, it's not as refined, because of course it hasn't been out there so much as the Bing one, which relies on OpenAI. But I believe that the quality will improve. And what it is actually risky from an SEO standpoint and publisher and web owner standpoint is up to which point Google will push it as part of their current interface. Because at the end of the day, it's something also that they should want to try to keep up, right? To refer the traffic to the website ecosystem out there, because there should be an incentive for websites to keep publishing content that they can learn from. That's what makes the web on one hand, and then on the other hand, to not alienate their own advertisers many times by keeping the traffic. But yes, there's definitely going to be an impact. I joined the beta test of the search generative experience a few days ago. And yes, you can definitely see that is in beta, right? Like there are for certain queries that are, for example, SEO courses. It will try to geolocate the query, which was not geolocated at all if you search it right now in the traditional, the current search interface, right? You will get like the top courses from guides, reviews, etc., rather than a local pack, a map pack, which is what they do in the search interactive experience. And something similar in e-commerce, right? They will try to show product carousel at the top, which is very similar than the product carousel that they're already featuring in the organic search results below. So it feels a little bit repetitive, right? So again, I think that the websites that actually have the risk to end up not getting as much traffic as before, real risk, I will say, are those that are the middlemen, because Google definitely want to become the middleman. Those that rely completely on ads or affiliates that don't provide a unique take, an actual take, something of value, and provide the product or the service themselves, which is funny, right? Because all of the opportunity that exists right now to automate the content, the way to be able to keep relevant, indeed, will end up being having your own voice, being an actual expert in a subject matter expert on your specific area, right? And Google also wants to integrate this more and more with on a common feature that they have announced also, which is the perspective filter, giving more of a visibility to real people, authors, right? So it's a little bit of a plan. It's going to change. I'm very excited at the same time, normal, also a little bit scared, but exciting times to be around for sure.
I guess that fear is like being unknown of what's happening next. And you made a good point about Google, like that they have to find the balance of, the Google ad business is such a big part of their revenue and they don't want to disrupt their cash cow. And maybe Microsoft and Bing has an opportunity because Bing ads is not a big part of the revenue. So that they can be more user-centric versus Google has to balance user and business and revenue.
100%. But you know what? Funnily enough, actually, Bing has done a much better work on integrating citations and external links.
I saw that.
Going to websites where they take the content from with overlay links, citations at the end, referring to the actual websites at the bottom of the answers, etc., in a much more prominent, visible way than Google. So it's funny that you mentioned it because I 100% agree. And then, ironically enough, Google is not doing what it is expected to do because they have like much more skin on the game
they do
than Bing, right? And not doing it like that for their advertisers, 100%.
That's super interesting. There's so much that you said there that has so much value and gem. One of the things that I've heard is that if SEOs and marketers want to stay relevant in this AI future world, they have to focus more on strategic and execution, because like a lot of the things that the typical intern would do, give me the top pages of this, AI will be able to do that. Is that what I'm hearing? Like, if you want to stay relevant, don't be a one-trick pony, but also don't really focus too much on like the tactical without having strategic, because AI can't do that yet. Like strategic.
100%. 100%. I mean, also the fact that if you know how to leverage these tools to make things faster, you don't want your competitors to outwork you just because they are using this automation integrated with a lot of SEO tools. Also now integrates chatbot-like type of features, like Ahrefs, for example, which is the content optimization tool that I use. It's also integrating a lot of AI for outlines, for paraphrasing content, writing content, FAQs, etc., for example. And not only for content, also, for example, for ongoing optimization and opportunities, SEOtesting.com, which is a fantastic tool to monitor and identify opportunities, has integrated also with OpenAI API for those pages where they identify that there's content decay, that content is decreasing in rankings after a while because of lack of freshness, etc. They integrate the rewrite feature, optimization feature to identify easy opportunities to optimize the content right there. So I think that there are like very smart ways to leverage these tools to accelerate the pace of your task in SEO on one hand, and then on the other hand, 100%. I mean, if you have been focused all of this time on selling, I don't know, I am going to write your metadata of 100 pages or 1,000 pages for, I don't know, $9.99 package, this type of things that we tend to see from time to time, right? There isn't much value right now, but still somehow it's possible to sell it. I can't see how that won't be the case in the future. So that is why you as a copywriter, as an SEO, etc., you want to become much more knowledgeable, much more sophisticated, to be able to add like this extra layer of strategical input in the work that you do, taking into consideration the context of the business, the goal of the business, the context of your industry, know-how of the industry, all this information that, well, the bots won't have to take and won't take into account when doing your work, right?
It makes a ton of sense. I love that. I think people start. I had an interesting question asked to me the other day about like, sure, like, people coming out of university, they might be at a disadvantage because typically their job starts off as that intern who's doing that task you mentioned. Do you see a future where like AI prompts is actually taught in university, where like they're actually teaching them how to build prompts? I'm just curious if that is a world that, that's actually a course on like prompt engineering, which I've never heard of until this person asked me yesterday.
Yeah, there is one indeed. There are quite a few. I mean, OpenAI published one. There are even a track of how to leverage AI. Also Maven that was announced. So a few different platforms are also releasing their own different courses for everybody to leverage the chatbots, right? And to make it easy. And I can definitely see how in the future, I mean, there is, remember when there was a time, potentially you don't remember because you're too young, but there was a time when I was a kid and I didn't get it. But I remember when I was a kid, there were people who were teenagers already that they went to typing lessons. Right?
I did. I went to typing lessons.
They actually went to typing lessons.
Yeah.
Once that I got to that stage, that age, that wasn't taught because PCs and computers and laptops were there, were natural. So they expected you to already know it, to already learn it at home, whatever. So you went to computer class or IT class, whatever, and you already were typing somehow in one way or another. Some better than others, but it was something already natural, right? So I do believe that this is going to happen now. That either for some people, yes, prompt engineering, how to leverage AI for kids now that are, I don't know, 10, whatever, when they are teenagers, that will be like natural for them to know, to understand how to interact with chatbots, that they won't need a class for that. So indeed, for sometimes that will be needed. In the long term, that will be completely natural. As kids right now know how to use fun and to type, the exact same thing.
Before I continue, I want to thank the sponsor for this episode, 42 Agency. Now, when you're in scale-up growth mode and you have to hit your KPIs, the pressure is on to deliver demos and signups, and it's a lot to handle. There's demand gen, email sequences, RevOps, and more. And that's where 42 Agency, founded by my good friend Camille Rexton, can help you. They're a strategic partner that's helped B2B SaaS companies like Profit to Wall, Teamwork, Sprout Social, and HubDoc to build a predictable revenue engine. If you're looking for performance experts and creatives to solve your marketing growth problems today and help you build the foundations for the future, look no further. Visit 42agency.com to talk to a strategist right now to learn how you can build a high-efficiency revenue engine. Thank you also to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs Free Webmaster Tools. Now, if you want to rank your website higher in search engines, you have to make sure that your website doesn't have any technical SEO issues. Because if you do, that's like trying to run a race with your shoes tied together. That's how you lose, and we don't want that. Luckily, Ahrefs Free Webmaster Tools can crawl up to 5,000 pages to find 140 common technical SEO issues that could be holding your site back from generating valuable traffic. Can also help you find your strongest backlinks, as well as analyze keywords you're ranking for and see keyword search volume and ranking difficulty for each of those keywords. You can sign up for free at ahrefs.com/webmastertools or find the link in the description and show notes. Well, let's get back to the episode. I totally I never even. That's a great analogy. You're right. I went to typing school, and I can't imagine my kid or them teaching
Yeah.
typing school at school right now. It's just
No, I don't
natural.
think so, is it? Well, I wasn't taught, at least, even at
Yeah, that's
that
super,
point.
super interesting that you're putting that. So there's courses out there around this prompt engineering, and a lot of the stuff you talked about, the first experience of SGE that you had, and as well as any prompts is on your website. I'm gonna link that in the description. You also have written several Twitter threads around it that have gotten viral, so I'll link all of that in the description. But I want to talk about like prompts itself because it seems like there are bad prompts lead to bad results, and you gave one
Yeah.
earlier. Give me an SEO strategy. For 2023 for this business, and you're like, that's a terrible prompt because it will not give you something useful. I'm curious, what are other like red flags for you when you're like, that's a bad prompt there. What are those like bad or red flags that you see in other prompts, or you will say are not will not give you good results?
Yeah, those that are very generic, ambiguous, that don't specify all of the characteristics, requirements, restrictions that are important to take into account. So, for example, if you ask to generate title tags, right? I mean, tell them following SEO best practices, right? So you need to specify well, and also give me title tags for, let's say, a jeans page. No, give me the title tags for a jeans page that is a product listing page that has a commercial intent and features jeans as products. So it knows that is or understand, and the answer is for content that is a PLP, that is transactional, that has a commercial intent, rather than informational, because otherwise, very likely, it will tell you, the best jeans for whatever, like if it was a guy, right? So, or your risks on getting this, right? So the more specific and descriptive you can be with all of the input that you need the bot to take into account, for the more accurate output, the best will be, right? And I understand that, especially at the beginning, that can take a little bit of refinement, right? And I do a lot of like, imagine that you're an SEO, providing the context, right? Imagine that you're an SEO specialist, developing a keyword research for a website that is this and that. So provide very specific context in order to get more accurate answers. So that is why I came up with the 5 Ws and the H, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Because this typical questions methodology for journalists to specify, like to do when doing an interview, right? To specify all the context, the why, who, where, when, how, and by providing all of these different specifications, characteristics, restrictions to take into account the context, the output will tend to be much better, right?
That makes sense. And I love that the more specific it is, the much better. I never used that imagine before. That's genius. I've seen one where like, pretend you're Ted Lasso. I'm not sure if you watched Ted Lasso, the show, where like he's this like really optimistic coach on Apple TV, and like write me a LinkedIn post as Ted Lasso. I never thought about it as like, imagine you're an SEO specialist and you're like very specific about like providing it context, so that it doesn't just output you generic stuff. Can you that prompt that you mentioned around the gene, you kind of already started breaking down the 5 W's and H there. Can you break down like, a little bit more, what is the context you were talking about? Create 5 title tags, and then where is it going to be used for? You're talking about it for genes category. Like how can you break down an example of how the 5 W's and H fits into an example? Yeah, can work.
So actually, I have quite a few examples and in the website, like examples like very specific, right? What is the expected task? So create 5 title tags. Where is it going to be used? To be featured in a Y jeans category page. How is the format, language, structure, tone, length, characteristics, constraints? So the content needs to be descriptive of products in English, relevant, engaging, with a commercial intent, following SEO best practices of no more than 50 characters each, for example, because otherwise it might be, who is the target audience? Potential gene buyers, right? When is it going to be used? On an ongoing basis, is evergreen content. When you want to use why do you want to use the expected goals, right? To engage the audience and rank better in search results. So all of this together is create 5 title tags to be featured in a Y Genes category page. The characteristics to be taken into account are the following. The target audience are potential genes buyers to be, and it's going to be used at an ongoing basis to engage and run better in genes category pages. So all of this, yes, is a bit long, right? But will allow you to create an output that is much more accurate, that needs less refinements. And then you can create, and I highly advise that you have your prompt library. There are actually extensions that facilitate this. AIPRM is one of the Chrome extensions that exist, but you can create your own library even in your own Google Sheets. This is what I do too. So anybody that I work with can have access to these prompts that I know that are very well refined for this use case. And you don't need to, I mean, you probably need to just to add the specific topic, and the audience will change and the type of page. And for this scenario of title tags, or this scenarios of meta description, or this scenarios of headings or FAQs, the output will be really good, right?
This looks like the early forming of like a content brief almost. Like you're or like imagine you're outsourcing this to like an intern or somebody. Yeah. The more specific you are, the more likely they'll be successful at doing that task rather than do X for me. So I truly believe that if I am good at this, it's because I'm so used on working remotely, right? I have been working remotely already for a while, since like even when I was an employee, right? 2014, I became also on my own, etc. But so I am very used to communicate well in written, on be very specific, very accurate on given, requiring or asking or ordering, like very specific, in a very specific way, in the way I communicate. And if you're sloppy, if you're too generic or ambiguous, and you don't know how to request stuff in a very accurate way, then you will have a harder time. If you're used to work remotely and know how important it is to communicate well in written, then it will be much more easily for you. Yeah. I feel like a hot take here is like, don't blame ChatGPT, blame you. Like, blame yourself if you're getting bad results. It's because you're not thinking through the stuff that you should be thinking about before you provide it to AI. So that you talked about generic, you talk about it. The reason why it's generic is like, you're not digging through exactly what you're looking for, who is it for, the how, the why, and everything else.
100%. I mean, bad output is because your input was bad and you didn't validate it well. You didn't refine and you didn't validate it well too. I mean, if the only person who you can blame for having bad quality content generated by AI out there is you, right? Because you didn't do a good job first with the input, with the prompts, and or with the validation later on. And you need to have a validation workflow. Having an actual expert double check, validate that what has been the output is actually accurate, that is on point, etc., right? Yeah.
Yeah, the validation is about like reviewing the results and like kind of tweaking it, like asking it follow-ups, like changing things to it. Is that exactly what that is about?
Yeah, 100%. And then also, if you're using it, for example, for generating title tags, for example, or generating content, FAQs, for example, you have an actual copywriter reviewing it, so they don't need to write from scratch all of the FAQ, but they are going to edit them and add value on them. What are the FAQs on? An example, renting a car in London, for example. So maybe you can leverage keyword tools as well as the chatbot to generate these questions and answers. But if you have an actual copywriter who's a car rental expert that knows the business, know the know-how, will know when a question potentially that is asked doesn't make sense, is too generic or too repetitive, or the answer that has been given by the bot is too broad to be actually useful and actionable. So this person will add the extra layer of their actual experience and
Right.
expertise
Mm.
to make it useful and make it actionable also within the website, right? Oh, to do this, you can change this configuration of the website to obtain this type of cars, or don't worry about this particular rules in London because they don't care about this, things like that, right? So literally, like something like, I believe that there's tons of value on thinking of it like this, like the first layer of content, of information. Yes, it would be at this point not smart to not leverage these tools. However, in an era where content can be highly, highly automated by AI, you need an expertise layer. That is going to be your own voice, your unique selling proposition. Otherwise, your content will look exactly the same than any other content out there. Uniqueness. What makes you unique? What is your tone of voice, right? This is marketing 101.
I feel like that's a whole like thread and post that you can potentially write if you haven't written one yet. Like that's something that's often skipped, where people think just put it in and then publish it, and you're like, no, wait a second. Like you really you're adding that expertise, that uniqueness, the stuff that search engines look for, that credibility and things like that you can't really check with this. You started already like kind of digging and giving examples. You have this, by the way, that article you mentioned around the 5 W's and H. I'm going to link it in the description. Great post. Another one you had was like prompts that that can accelerate or help people with SEO activities. You've been giving a ton already around like title tags and like description. I'm curious, like, is there one that is that title tag something that you use often, or like what are other ones from that list of 20 that are like often maybe your favorite, or maybe ones that you use like quite often for clients or for yourself?
Yeah, I love to leverage it for ideas, right? Especially as a non-native English speakers. Better ways to say something, more professional ways to say something.
Interesting.
Also to do stuff in bulk. Leveraging the extensions, the Google Sheets extensions, rewrite me, regenerate these titles that are too long by making them less than 55 characters while keeping the core keywords that you can see in this auto cell into account. So it will rewrite them to you, right? So this type of workflows, I use them a lot, or generate the FAQ for this group of pages in bulk in Google Sheets by looking into the most asked questions, the most popular questions about their topic, taking into account that they are going to be featured in listing pages in this type of business. So you take a look, and then someone who's an actual expert in the business comes and review. So these type of scenarios, I think that they can be very, very powerful. I use them. I actually was using a little bit of that on my own websites that I have as a little bit of a test too. And I have more and more clients are relying on the tech to help their marketers, to help their copywriters, not to replace them, right? That is something very important.
That makes sense. I like that. I never even thought about that. I think even like copywriters can use this, like, you give me variations of this. So it's more like an ideation tool where you can you give me other options where you can like pick one that might make more sense for you rather than something else. It's exactly what I'm hearing here.
100%.
One other question I had around before we shift around career power-ups is, I've heard a lot of, specifically I work in B2B SaaS, and a lot of like SaaS companies have been hit traffic-wise, organic traffic. I noticed that you're like providing a bunch of templates on your site, and I've heard, I don't know if this is correct, where that value add of adding templates or like Google Sheet or even videos is a way to stay relevant in this AI future search world, so to speak. I'm curious, what are some practical tips you have for marketers and SEOs who have seen their traffic go down because of maybe AI or in the past few months, and they're trying to figure out exactly what the future of things they can do to continue to stay relevant?
What I will say is that you do a good benchmark. You take a look at what is getting visibility right now in the SERPs and what is getting your traffic. So, for example, if you see that Google is shifting the results because they have identified that the intent of the user, the search behavior of the users has changed. And of course, you are sort of giving outdated content that doesn't really fulfill that need of the users that Google is finding right now. You need to update that content or to create new content that actually fills that need. So from time to time, indeed, after, especially until now, like after core updates that happen every 3-4 months or so, we'll see that many times for some queries, broader queries, well, Google were ranking, for example, listing pages. All of a sudden, they are not ranking as many listing pages, but they are now ranking guides. And then all of a sudden, it's not that they have shifted the type of content that they are ranking now, but now they are showing a prominent video carousel or a map pack or an image pack or a product carousel, right? In the search features. So all of the clicks go there rather than on your website, even if you haven't lost positions, literally. So what it is important is to understand first, why is that changing?
Right.
Google is changing their search and search results, their interface of the results because of a need of the user that is shifting. So can you produce content in videos, in images, or generate feeds in order to make the most out of all of these features that Google is showing in your results and are eating your clicks, your traffic? That is the first thing. If it is doable for you, then when it actually makes sense for you to do it so in a way that has a ROI positive impact on your business, right? You maybe you cannot do this for every single query, for every single content, but you can start assessing the impact for a few very important money-making queries for you, where you can see that this type of snippets or features are shown, and you have the capability to create them. That can be a way. That can be one of the ways. And for me, especially with the new search generative experience that will be released in the next few months after trial, test, whatever beta it needs to be and tweaks they need to have. And I'm certain and hopeful that they will continue referring traffic to the websites with proper citations and links as Bing is doing. There's certainly going to be a shift. So we need to understand how it's shifting to be able to keep relevant and continue connecting with the users in one way or another. An example, yesterday I was playing around with the new Google Search Generative Experience snapshots and seeing that for branded queries, if you work with a very well-known merchant, an example, right? Retailer, an example, Nike sneakers.
Yeah.
If you search for these branded queries like this for a product line of a very big brand, you will tend to use that the category pages, the listing pages of that big brand website will tend to be there all the time. This is pretty much traffic that they own. Big brand, let's say, type of experience at the end of the day. Then with the new search generative experience, you realize that Google is pretty much generating their own listing above the organic results. Yeah. And they are listing directly the products there. The traffic that used to go to the category page of Nike sneakers or North Face jacket, right, will now be attracted to go to specific product pages that are now featured at the top. Yeah. You know, the funny thing is that these product pages, when you click on them, a product knowledge panel is displayed. And in the product knowledge panel, you don't only have the link to the product page of the official brand, but also all of the distributors, online stores.
Oh my goodness.
That distribute their products. So yes, you can see how the net effect for the typical listing page will be negative if this is released as it is in beta right now. What can you do? So it is about working and understanding the shift of the behavior of the user on one hand with these new results and how these results are displayed, to identify opportunities for these brands to say, okay, then a new type of page is required, or make your PLPs or your listing actually different to have a more prominent and visible way to connect with the users in another way, right, of the journey. or maybe they are not necessary at all of a sudden. And then you need to focus completely on your product pages and making them much more comprehensive, much more unique, all the structured data, etc., to ensure that you get the top visibility there. So, I mean, again, or maybe you even need to generate much more informational content. So Google source that content at the top of their snapshot, which is what they're doing with many guides. And then they are, let's say, pressured to link to you in this other way. So again, it's about, I would say, being very strategical, keeping your eyes open, and see every time that you are getting less traffic. Why is this? Is this? Is because I have lost positions or not? I am keeping position. Is the click-through rate that is decreasing? And why is the click-through rate decreasing? It's because there is a big feature above my result that wasn't there 6 months ago. What is changing? Can I leverage that or not? Or is because the people are not searching as much this type of products and they are searching them in another way? Should I create new content to tackle and target and address these other queries? So again, you need to identify this. So as you can see, this type of stuff, I don't see a bot replicating this type of behavior quite easily. Exactly. You need to understand the market. Yeah. You need to understand the context. You need to be proactive and identify opportunities like that. And pretty much this is why SEO tends to be complex, because you need to be paying attention like this every time. There's an ongoing change. And then also it's about aligning the resources to validate your hypothesis many times, develop tests, and then replicate in a way that is actually cost effective for the websites.
I just love how you like really dug into it like a detective, like broke down what you would do. Like this is like this investigative, like something died. Now we got to go like dig into the clues and figure out exactly how to fix it. Really, thank you for sharing that and digging deep into that. In terms of yourself, like I noticed you share a lot of like Google Sheet templates, and it's not gated. I'm curious if that's more of you trying to being really helpful to folks, or is that like an SEO? It's an SEO play at all, where like just open it wide, and it's not something that once again, it's a value add that Google can't just crawl. Like you have this template that they need to show or something.
I think that, and this is a great question. Thank you. And I think it's tied with what we were talking a little bit before we started our recording, right? Like there's this balance and layer about you as a professional, as a market, as a consultant too, are willing and able and happy to share for free out there to give back to the community, to establish yourself as an authority also in your sector, etc., which are things that of course I want to do. And then also how much you don't want to give away, because it should be part of your know-how that you sell ultimately, right, to your clients. And a lot of people say and are like, okay, but if you are going to give away this, like, at least leverage it to get into this users or into your funnel already, right? So I prefer a wider reach. I think that life's too short to gating stuff around. Many ways to get stuff anyway. I highly dislike this trend that I see over Twitter, like, I have this template about Y, or X or Y. Retweet me and follow me, and I will send it to you over DMs. Like, oh my God, why? Look, if I am sharing stuff for free, without being gated, etc., I know that people will find me valuable enough and if I do it at a consistent basis, and the noise, value versus noise ratio is good enough, people will eventually, like after the third time, consider themselves that it's valuable to follow me because I am sharing good stuff all the time, rather than me requiring them to do it just to share the first, right? So I am much more aligned with being much more natural, providing value, being more organic. At the end of the day, I'm an SEO, and that is what I love, this way to do marketing, because it's more aligned with good UX rather than pushing people around to do X or Y without them being necessarily all in there yet, making their mind that this is the actual right thing for them to do, right? So I prefer to give not just and that they realize that there's value following me and reading my newsletter the same, rather than gating everything and requiring access like that. Yeah.
I love that. You're like really optimizing for impact. You can impact more people because people will be turned off when you gate it. Oh, I don't want to give my email. Like you're actually trying to share it and distribute it to as many people and help as many people as possible, SEOs and marketers alike.
And it will make the people who follow me also more engaging. And also, if I am requiring that, for example, to grow my newsletter list, for example, very likely a lot of these people will never open my newsletter anyway because they have been pushed to subscribe to it in that way, right?
That's true.
I prefer that they decide to do it so because they have seen that I share value and they are incentivized to open the newsletter because they know it's useful, right?
I love that. That's a perfect place to switch gears. And I feel like this is already starting to push towards that around things that helped you accelerate your career. Now you've been in SEO now since 2007. And I'm curious, what's something that's helped you like level up and accelerate? And it could be just what you mentioned about like helping as many people as possible, but it could be, going on more podcasts or talks or starting your own show. Like I'm curious, what's one thing that's helped you level up your career?
Yeah, 100%. I think that what you mentioned actually has been like the key differentiator in my journey, right? Sharing. And I do it because I love it, because it's the way that I also learn. I mean, when you share something, when you educate on something, it's because you have tried it, you have tested it, and you also learn along the way things that work, things that don't, and get feedback from other people and interact much more with the community. Of course, I would say that it's something that should be natural for you to do, something that it's not something difficult or that will add some extra layer of complexity in your life that doesn't make it enjoyable, right? Like, for example, when I mean sharing too, is sharing in so many different formats. For me, speaking is also sharing. Just in speaking format, when you do presentations, when you do webinars, when you go on stage, in podcasts. Sharing is also writing blog posts, writing guides, sharing templates. That is sharing too. So a lot of people is like, oh, how you ended up deciding that you wanted to speak? It's like, because speaking was another way of sharing, potentially a little bit more stressful and complex one, but also one that I also enjoy more because allow me to travel to places, and I love to travel and interact with the community. And since I work remotely, that is a way that I have to see more people and interact and meet more like-minded people, etc., etc. So it becomes very natural for me to do so. But of course, you need to enjoy it. So whenever someone tells me, oh, I want to become a consultant or develop my career in a way, and I want to establish my personal brand, but I don't love to speak, right? And it's like, no worries. There are so many different ways to share with guides, with podcasts, with this, with that. So you don't need to be pushed on doing it in a way that doesn't spark joy, right? It's not natural for you, and it's not enjoyable at the end of the day.
That's so good. I love how you brought up sparking joy there. If doing a podcast or sharing templates or even speaking, whatever makes you spark joy. I'm curious what's motivating you to share. And you talked a little bit about meeting with other folks, but is it to have as much impact on the world, to maybe more altruism? Obviously, there's also the business side to it where, growing your personal brand generates, potential clients. What's the motivation for you, specifically, that's motivating you to continue to share great content that, once again, I'm going to link in the description. I'm also a big fan of your newsletter, which I'm telling everybody to subscribe to it. But what is that motivation behind all of this for you?
Yeah, so I'm very curious, and this is one of the things that actually attracted me to SEO. That SEO is a little bit of content, technical, marketing, is a mix of everything. Right. Pretty sure I have ADHD undiagnosed because I'm like this all over the place. But yes, this is what actually attracted me to SEO, and I love about it. And then when I became independent also, and even before, I always was attracted to, I'm like blogging on the side. doesn't necessarily need to make money, but it's something that I enjoy. Sharing on social media, going to events, even if I didn't and wasn't thinking at the time becoming independent or having a consultancy. And then afterwards, it's something that I am more mindful about how. I mean, I'm very thankful for the career that I have had and how I have been able to evolve myself. Thanks for the information that I have been able to get in one way or another. So I want to simplify that and make it much more easy so newcomers can have all of, for example, with learningseo.io, to have all of this aggregation of knowledge that is accurate, that is up to date, that is provided by people who will provide the know-how and will help them to get there much faster. So that is why I created also as a way to give back, let's say, because yes, sometimes it's like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. And I'm very, very thankful for all the evolution that I have had professionally, right? So it's also a way to do something that I enjoy and to give back and also to play around, to test around. Yeah. I'm also using the websites that I create to test things with SEO FOMO. Actually, I never expected email marketing and newsletter to be, oh my God, I am hooked now, right? To be so good, to be successful. I'm like organic SEO. And I'm like, oh my God, if you want an engaged bottom of the funnel customers or or fans or audience, go there, create your list and play around what works or not to grow it. The same when I started Crawling Mondays, my video series / podcast, right? I started at the beginning of 2019 or so to test YouTube as a channel, organic channel to optimize for and took it from there, right? So I'm always testing new things and doubling down on those that work.
I love it. I feel like what I'm hearing is like you're just naturally curious and you're doing all of this and you're sharing it in public, just like, oh, this is what I learned. And this is something that's helped me, that can help you. That's super, super cool. In terms of one final, second to the final question around, if you can send a message back to a younger version of Aleyda, what advice or tip would you send yourself who might be starting out in SEO, who might be starting out in marketing? What would be that tip or advice or nugget of wisdom that you can share to your younger version of you?
Yeah, I would say don't double think it. Be proactive. Give yourself your own opportunities, right? I think that especially when I was very young and starting as an SEO, I was always looking for, expecting someone like a good boss or mentor or something like that to see my value and provide me the opportunity to grow my career, better job, more salary, better this and that. And then I realized that I needed to provide that opportunities to myself. So an example, if you're looking people and expect them to ask you to speak at a big conference, right? But they haven't seen you speak ever, right? And how can you get into their radars? Like, give yourself that opportunity first by even like creating your own webinars, creating your own video series, or starting to speak, and then with these examples that you know how to speak well, you propose little by little to smaller channels so they can invite you, then bigger and bigger online stages. And then at some point, it's like when there are now forms to pitch to big conferences, like examples that you can speak well, you can already send quite a few, right? So it's very hard for them to say no. So, but giving yourself or getting to that point where it's very hard to dismiss you or to overlook you or to not give you opportunities because you're so good. I believe that there's a lot we can do for ourselves rather than just asking for help. It's like, oh, I don't have the support or I don't have the validation or you need to validate yourself many, many times and push yourself towards the spot where it's impossible to not take you into consideration. So, and wherever you want to go, right? Independently of where you want to go. So I think that we can do a lot around that. And I will say myself, because my early 20-something took risks, yes, but I believe that, I would have pushed myself much harder on being much more proactive, starting on my own, etc., rather than looking for others to give me opportunity like that, or applying to jobs, things like that, right?
I love that. That's there was this other conversation I had with Brendan Hufford. He talked about this book called Be So Good That They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport, which is exactly what you're saying. Like, you're just like honing your craft and like really sharing, and it all kind of works together. What you just said, like you sharing, you honing your craft, you like building up and asking for it, kind of builds up to where you are today. Just exactly.
Love to hear that.
You can find out more about Aleyda's work online. She's doing a lot actually. She has a podcast called Crawling Mondays. You can find on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. She has a newsletter, SEO FOMO, at seofomo.co. She has SEO consulting at orianti.com, courses at learningseo.io. You can find all of those links, including her LinkedIn and Twitter profile, on the show notes and description. Thank you to Aleyda for being on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, you'd love the Marketing Powerups newsletter. I share the actionable takeaways and break down the frameworks of world-class marketers. You can go to marketingpowerups.com to subscribe, and you'll instantly unlock the 3 best frameworks that top marketers use to hit their KPIs consistently and wow their colleagues. I want to say thank you to you for listening, and please like and follow Marketing Powerups on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If you're feeling extra generous, kindly leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave a comment on YouTube. It goes a long way in others finding out about Marketing Powerups. Thanks to Mary Sullivan for creating the artwork and design, and thank you to Faisal Taigo for editing the intro video. And of course, thank you for listening. That's all for now. Have a powered up day.
Marketing Power-Ups. Until the next episode,